Okay, so I know you've probably been digging into Brené Brown's Rising Strong.
Great book.
It's amazing. It's all about turning struggle into strength.
Yeah, turning those tough times into something good, right?
Exactly. But let's be honest,
Mm,
it's a pretty dense read.
it is.
There are so many good ideas in there.
So many.
It can be tough to know where to even start applying them in your own life.
Absolutely.
So we're going to pull out the most useful bits from Rising Strong,
Okay.
especially from the chapters on the physics of vulnerability
Mm.
and reckoning, rumbling, and revolution.
Love those chapters.
Yeah, they're good. Think of this deep dive as your cheat sheet to actually using Brown's wisdom in your daily life.
Cheat sheet to a better life. I love it.
Right.
Yeah.
So Brown throws this idea out there
Okay.
that vulnerability is the key to courage and wholehearted living.
Definitely.
But how does that actually work? I mean, we're often told to toughen up and hide our feelings.
That's where so many of us get tripped up.
Yeah.
We think that showing vulnerability is weakness. But Brown's arguing the opposite.
Okay.
Choosing courage over comfort, that's what unlocks real strength.
It's like she's saying we have to lean into the uncertainty.
Mhm.
Like
jumping into the unknown.
yeah, like that feeling in the David Gray song, My Oh
Oh,
My,
I love that song.
where you're taking that leap of faith and you have no idea what's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's where Brown's laws of emotional physics come into play.
Okay, tell me about that.
One of the big ones is that, falling is part of being brave. It's inevitable.
Hmm.
But that growth that comes from vulnerability,
Yeah.
that's irreversible.
You can't unlearn it.
You can't unlearn it.
So, okay, we're trying to be brave. We know we're going to stumble.
Okay.
But how do we actually get back up when we fall?
That's where the three-step process of reckoning, rumbling, and revolution comes in.
This is where things get really interesting.
It is.
Break down those steps for me.
Okay, so reckoning,
Mm-hmm.
it's all about getting curious about your emotions.
Okay.
Just notice how you're feeling and ask yourself, why?
Mm-hmm.
What story are you telling yourself about what happened?
Then comes the rumbling, which I imagine can get pretty intense.
It can.
Yeah.
The rumbling is where you challenge those stories you came up with during the reckoning.
Okay.
You dig deeper, question your
Imagine if
assumptions.
you're getting in there.
Yeah. You're looking for the truth even if it's uncomfortable.
That's tough.
It is. You have to be willing to wrestle with those narratives.
Brown uses Claudia's story in the book about the family turmoil and heartbreak she went through.
Oh yeah, Claudia's story.
Yeah.
That perfectly shows how powerful it can be to face those difficult emotions head on.
Yeah.
She had to work through the pain of her family's struggles,
Yeah.
and eventually she discovered the transformative power of forgiveness.
It's not about saying that the bad behavior is okay.
Right, exactly.
It's about letting go of the anger and the resentment that keeps you stuck.
Yeah, getting unstuck.
And this is probably a good place to mention shitty first drafts.
One of my favorite takeaways from the book.
Oh, it's a great one.
It is.
Writing shitty first drafts is all about processing your emotions without judgment.
Okay.
Just get it all out on paper. Don't censor yourself.
So it's like giving yourself permission to feel everything, even the messy stuff.
Exactly.
Even the stuff you don't want to admit to.
You got it.
Okay.
Once you have that raw material, then you can start to rumble with it.
Okay.
Look for patterns, challenge your assumptions,
Okay.
and you can start rewriting your story.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
She also talks about the braving checklist for building trust,
Oh, yeah.
which seems like it could apply to so many areas of life.
Absolutely. It's relevant for personal relationships, work, even communities.
So how does that break down?
Braving stands for boundaries,
Okay.
reliability, accountability, vault, integrity,
Mm-hmm.
non-judgment, and generosity.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but each of those elements is so important for building a solid foundation of trust. So we've reckoned with our emotions. We've rumbled with our stories.
Okay.
What does the revolution look like?
The revolution is where you start living out those insights you've gained.
Okay.
You make changes in your life, set boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and show up differently in your relationships.
So it's like walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about putting it all into practice.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the revolution is where the rubber meets the road.
It is. It's about taking all that introspection and turning it into action.
Brown talks about this concept of living big, which I think fits in here.
Oh, yeah, living big.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic way to sum up the revolution.
Okay.
It stands for boundaries, integrity, and generosity. And it's about moving through the world with self-respect and compassion.
Let's break that down a little bit.
Okay.
What does setting boundaries look like in real life?
Sure.
Sometimes it's easier said than done.
It's about being crystal clear on what you will and won't tolerate. It's honoring your own needs and values, even when it's hard, especially if you're used to putting others first.
That resonates with me.
Yeah.
Setting those boundaries can be so tough, especially in close relationships.
It is a mindset shift, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's crucial if you want healthy relationships and a life that feels authentic to you.
So boundaries are about protecting ourselves. What about integrity?
Integrity is all about living in alignment with your values.
Okay.
It's making sure your actions match your beliefs, even when it means taking the harder path.
That takes courage, right?
He does.
Speaking up when it's easier to stay silent, doing the right thing even when it's unpopular.
Absolutely. That's where true strength lies.
Yeah.
It's easy to just go with the flow, but integrity is about standing firm in what you believe in.
And then we have generosity.
Okay.
How does that tie into rising strong?
Generosity is about extending grace to yourself and to others.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we all make mistakes and we're all doing the best we can with what we've got.
We're all works in progress, right?
Exactly.
So-
Generosity is about ditching the judgment and choosing compassion instead.
Yeah.
Creating a space where it's okay to be human, flaws and all.
Brown has that story about a woman named Pamela
Oh, yeah.
who sent her a really passive-aggressive email.
I remember that one.
I remember it made Brown want to just fire back and defend herself.
Oh, totally.
But it's such a great illustration of how easy it is to get pulled into those negative cycles.
It is. You want to just react.
Yeah.
But Brown realized that getting caught up in blame and judgment, it wouldn't help anyone.
So she chose generosity instead.
She did.
She tried to see things from Pamela's point of view and offer compassion.
And that's a radical act of courage right there.
It is.
Choosing understanding over judgment, connection over isolation.
Yeah.
It's much harder to do, but so much more powerful.
It's like saying, I see you, I hear you, and I'm not going to let this hurt ruin our connection.
Exactly. And that ties back to the idea that connection is the antidote to shame.
That's so powerful.
It is.
And that's the core of rising strong, right?
I think so.
Choosing connection over disconnection. Recognizing that we need each other, especially during the rough times.
Especially then.
That's why she talks about those story rumble partners.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes.
The people we trust enough to process our experiences with.
Those relationships are gold.
Yeah.
They give you a safe space to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
to share your story without fear of shame or judgment.
It's where real healing can happen.
It is.
When you feel truly seen and heard.
Absolutely. And you don't have to overthink it.
Yeah.
You know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
They can be anyone you feel safe and connected to. Friends, family, mentors.
One thing that really hit home for me in the book is the difference between guilt and shame.
Oh, that's a good one.
Can you talk about that a bit more?
Sure. So guilt is about your actions.
Okay.
What you did
Mm-hmm.
is that feeling when you know you messed up or went against your own values.
Like when you break a promise or tell a lie, you feel guilty about that specific action.
Exactly. And guilt can actually be healthy.
Okay.
It can motivate you to make things right, to do better next time.
Shame's different though, isn't it?
It is.
Shame is about who you are, not what you did.
Right.
It's that feeling of being fundamentally flawed or unworthy.
It's that voice that says you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You're a failure.
And shame is so destructive.
It is.
It keeps you stuck in those negative patterns, keeps you from taking risks,
Yeah,
and can even sabotage your relationships.
absolutely.
I've always thought of perfectionism as a form of shame.
It absolutely is.
Perfectionism is that constant need to be flawless.
Yeah.
The fear of making a mistake.
It comes from that belief that your worth depends on being perfect.
Which is exhausting because none of us are perfect.
Exactly. And trying to hide your flaws
Yeah.
or pretend to be something you're not takes a huge toll.
It really does.
It does.
Brown's message is to embrace our imperfections.
Yes.
Be kind to ourselves.
Be kind to yourself.
And remember that our worthiness is already there. We don't have to earn it.
It's inherent.
Yeah.
It's already there.
And that brings us to applying these ideas at work.
Okay.
Brown talks about how rising strong can transform workplace culture.
It can. She has a whole chapter on it.
Yeah.
And one of her key points is creating what she calls story rumble teams.
What are story rumble teams?
Basically safe spaces where colleagues can come together
Okay.
to process tough work experiences, share their stories,
Okay.
and support each other.
That sounds like a great way to build trust and vulnerability at work.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a shift away from that old school tough it out
Right.
mentality.
Yeah.
It's about creating a culture where it's okay to be human, to make mistakes, and to ask for help.
I can see how that would create a ripple effect throughout the entire organization.
It does.
When people feel safe to be vulnerable at work,
Mm-hmm.
they're more likely to take risks,
Yeah.
be creative,
Yeah.
and to collaborate more effectively. It's about building a culture of empathy and support,
Yeah.
where people feel valued for who they are, not just for what they produce.
I love that.
I do too.
And that leads to happier employees, more innovation, and better results for everyone.
So we've covered the reckoning, the rumbling, and the revolution. We've
Mhm.
talked about living big, guilt versus shame,
Right.
and story rumble partners, both personal and professional.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, but there's one more thing I wanted to touch on.
Okay. What's that?
The manifesto of the brave and brokenhearted.
Ah, yes.
That powerful call to action.
It's a reminder that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the key to a wholehearted life.
What are some of the main points from the manifesto?
Well, it starts by stating that we belong to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our worthiness is inherent. It's not something we have to earn.
It's a reminder to ditch the need for perfection, embrace your imperfections,
Yes.
and show up authentically.
It also encourages you to be courageous,
Mhm.
to step into life's arena even when you're afraid, because that's where you grow and connect with others.
And it reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles.
No, we're not.
Everyone goes through heartbreak, disappointment, setbacks.
It's part of being human.
Instead of hiding those experiences,
Right.
the manifesto encourages us to share them,
Yeah.
to connect with others who've been there, and to find strength in our shared humanity.
That's powerful.
It is.
Very powerful.
One line that stuck with me was, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are.
It's such a powerful call to authenticity,
It is.
to ditch the masks and roles we play and just be ourselves.
It's a reminder that we are enough just as we are.
And that's a revolutionary idea in a culture that's obsessed with being someone you're not.
Yeah.
It's a message of hope and freedom.
So what does it mean to be brave and brokenhearted?
I think it's about acknowledging the full spectrum of human experience.
Okay.
The joy and the sorrow, the wins and the losses.
It's about embracing the messiness of life.
Yes.
It's about knowing that we'll stumble and fall,
We will.
but we can always rise again, stronger than before.
Stronger and wiser.
And it's about recognizing that our vulnerabilities are not something to be ashamed of.
No, they're not.
They're a source of strength and connection.
Absolutely.
It's about showing up with your whole heart, even when it's scary, because that's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens.
The manifesto ends with that beautiful line, courage, dear heart.
It does.
It's a gentle reminder to be kind to ourselves, to trust our gut, and to keep going even when it's hard.
It's a call to live a life that's brave, compassionate, and full of love.
Speaking of stories and connecting with others,
Yeah,
you've been digging deep into Rising Strong.
I have.
What are some of the things that have stood out to you the most?
One thing that keeps coming back to me is Brown's emphasis on the power of storytelling. Sharing our stories, even the tough ones, is so important for healing, connection, and personal growth.
It's true.
When you give voice to your experiences, you take away their power to shame you.
And when you hear other people's stories,
Yeah.
you realize you're not alone.
You're not.
It builds empathy and a sense of belonging.
Absolutely.
Brown also talks about finding those story rumble partners.
Yeah.
Those people you trust to process your experiences with.
Those are the people who will listen without judgment,
Yes.
offer support without trying to fix you,
Mm-hmm.
and just hold space for you to be vulnerable.
It's about finding people who will meet you where you are,
Yeah.
walk alongside you, and remind you of your own strength.
Sometimes those story rumble partners show up in the most unexpected ways.
They do.
Like Anne Brown's story about the woman she met on the plane who shared her own experience with heartbreak.
Oh, that's a beautiful example
That is.
of how connection can happen anywhere,
Anywhere.
and how sharing your story can build intimacy, even with strangers.
It reminds you that we're all connected.
Yeah,
We all have stories.
we do.
And there's always someone out there who understands.
That's a comforting thought. We're not alone, even in our darkest moments.
So thinking about everything we've talked about today,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things you're going to try to apply in your own life?
I am going to work on setting boundaries.
Okay, good one.
It's something I've always struggled with, putting others' needs before my own.
That's a common struggle,
Yeah.
especially for women.
But I'm realizing that it's not selfish to prioritize my well-being.
It's not.
It's crucial if I want to have healthy relationships and a life that feels true to myself.
It is. Boundaries don't have to be confrontational.
Right.
Sometimes it's just saying, I can't do that right now, or I need some time to think about it.
I'm also really inspired by Brown's emphasis on generosity.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I love that.
I want to be more forgiving of myself and others,
Okay.
remembering that we all make mistakes
Yeah,
and offer compassion instead of judgment.
that's a wonderful intention.
Yeah.
We can all work on that every day.
And I'm going to be more intentional about building relationships with my Story Rumble partners.
Good.
I need those people who will support me, challenge me, and remind me of my strength.
Having those trusted relationships is essential.
It is.
They'll help you through the ups and downs of life.
They will.
They really will.
Okay, so boundaries, generosity, Story Rumble partners.
Those are good ones.
Those are my big takeaways from Rising Strong.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
That's true.
You'll have setbacks and make mistakes.
I will.
But that's okay.
That's part of the process.
The key is to keep showing up,
Mm-hmm.
keep practicing, and believe in your ability to grow and change.
And to remember Brown's words. Courage, dear heart.
Yes, beautiful words.
We've got this.
We do.
Now, one last thing before we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, what's that?
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on something Brown calls conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
The stories we tell ourselves about our struggles.
Yes, she also calls them confabulations.
Oh, yeah.
They're the stories we invent to make sense of things,
Hmm.
especially painful experiences.
And those stories can be really damaging, can't they?
They can. They keep you stuck,
Yeah.
stop you from moving forward, and can even sabotage your relationships.
So how do we challenge those conspiracy theories?
Right.
How do we break free from those limiting stories?
That's where the rumbling comes in.
Okay.
You have to question your assumptions, look for evidence that contradicts your beliefs, and be open to seeing things from a new perspective.
Brown gives us those tools we've been talking about, like
Mhm.
the shitty first drafts exercise, the braving checklist,
Yeah.
and the living big principles.
And she always emphasizes the importance of those story rumble partners,
Yeah.
those trusted people who can help you see your blind spots
Mhm.
and challenge your limiting beliefs.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rising Strong,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this question.
I'm listening.
What are some of the conspiracy theories you've been telling yourself about your own struggles?
Mm-hmm.
And how can you start rumbling with those stories today?
That's a powerful question.
It is.
And it's one we all need to ask ourselves regularly.
Because the stories we tell ourselves shape our lives.
They do.
And if we're not careful, they can keep us stuck in the past, stop us from reaching our potential, and sabotage our happiness.
The good news is that we have the power to change those stories.
We do.
We can choose a new narrative, write a more empowering ending.
That's what Rising Strong is all about.
It is.
It's about reclaiming our power, our courage, and our wholeheartedness.
Yes.
So we can live authentically, joyfully, and fully.
And on that note, I think we've earned a break.
We have.
We have.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rising Strong.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in those,
Those negative thoughts.
those negative thought patterns, especially when we're, feeling down or hurt.
It's like our brains are always searching for those patterns,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of everything.
Yeah. Trying to figure it all out.
But sometimes we end up with stories that aren't actually true.
And even though they're not true, those stories can have a huge impact on how we live our lives.
They really can.
Yeah, they shape our beliefs, our actions.
Even our relationships.
Exactly.
So what are some of the most common conspiracy theories that we tell ourselves?
One that comes up all the time is that we're not good enough.
Oh, that's a big one.
It is a big one.
That there's something fundamentally wrong with us.
Yeah, like we're broken somehow.
Yeah, and it shows up in so many ways.
It does.
From perfectionism to people-pleasing to self-sabotage.
Exactly. And it often goes back to experiences early in life
Oh, yeah.
where we felt judged or rejected.
So we take in those messages and start believing them about ourselves.
We do, and then we carry those beliefs into adulthood,
Oh, yeah.
where they can cause all sorts of problems.
Another common one is the idea that we're not lovable, that we're going to end up alone.
That one is especially tough.
It is.
It can lead to being afraid of intimacy,
Yeah.
having trouble trusting others, and just feeling isolated.
And it often comes from those past experiences of heartbreak or abandonment.
It does. We start to believe that we don't deserve love
Yeah.
or that we're not capable of having healthy relationships.
And then we create these self-fulfilling prophecies.
We do.
We push people away, sabotage our relationships, or settle for less than we deserve.
It's a vicious cycle.
But the good news is that we can break free from it.
We can, absolutely.
So how do we do that?
Well,
How do we challenge these beliefs and start writing a new story for ourselves?
the first step is awareness.
Okay.
We have to realize what stories we're telling ourselves, what beliefs are running the show.
And then we have to start questioning those stories.
We do.
Is there any proof that they're true?
Yeah.
Or are we just replaying old tapes in our heads?
That's where those Story Rumble partners can really help.
They can?
They can point out our blind spots, challenge our assumptions,
Yeah.
and offer a fresh perspective.
Brown also talks about the importance of self-compassion.
Oh, that's so key.
Treating ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a good friend.
We're often much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on anyone else.
We are, and that inner critic can be relentless. It can trap us in a cycle of shame and self-doubt.
We need to learn to quiet that critic and cultivate a more compassionate voice.
A voice that says, it's okay to mess up. You're not perfect. And that's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
You deserve love and belonging just as you are.
That's a message we all need to hear again and again.
We do, because it's the truth.
It is.
We are all worthy just as we are.
Yes, we are.
And we all have the strength to rise strong no matter what life throws our way.
It's about understanding that our struggles aren't a sign of weakness, but a sign of our shared humanity.
And it's through those struggles that we grow.
We do.
We learn, and we become more resilient.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rising Strong,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought. You are the author of your own story.
You get to choose the narrative,
Yeah.
write the ending, and create a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
You don't.
Reach out to your Story Rumble partners, practice self-compassion, and keep rising strong.
Courage, dear heart. You've got this.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rising Strong. We hope you walk away with some practical tools and a renewed sense of courage for facing life's challenges.
Yes, keep those stories rumbling.
Until next time.